So imagine this. You're an athlete at, let's just say, Ohio State University. Huge athletic school, tons of programs, tons of money coming in from those programs. So you're an athlete there, say a football player. So every Saturday, you're playing on national TV against nationally ranked teams. You're talked about on ESPN. You're famous around the area when you go to restaurants and stuff. But then you start to look at, how much money is this university getting from me being a talented football player? And sure, you get a scholarship to do that. But you start to see the amount of, the broadcasting contracts. You see all the apparel that's bought at these games that has your name on it or not your name on it. Anything like that, the athletic program is getting all this money coming in. And sure, they spend a lot on you, but you're starting to see, yeah, I have a scholarship and I can pay for my room and board and my tuition, but, I can't really work because I'm an athlete, but I also don't have enough for groceries sometimes at the end of the week. So the issue that some people bring up is, shouldn't these athletes get paid for the amount of money that they're bringing in for their school? It's a pretty hotly debated topic, and with the NCAA being as very finicky and picky and small detailed as they are, it's really hard to find a way to give these athletes the compensation that they, say they deserve. In my opinion, coming from an athlete at a smaller school, I don't think this is a very good idea, because the NCAA tries to keep everything fair across all three divisions of schools that they have. But if you're going to try to keep something like that fair, you have schools that are up here, like Ohio State, or you have schools, say, like us, Green Bay, or down here. We don't even have football. So how do we create something where we all get paid the same amount of money? Well, the issue is small schools like Green Bay, we have a very minimum amount of programs to be Division I, and basketball is our main source of revenue. And me being a swimmer, I know, my sport doesn't bring in a lot of money, so I wouldn't get paid. And I can tell you that if I sat there and saw basketball players being paid tons of money, just because their sport brings in all the money, I'd feel like, okay, I get that, but also, it doesn't seem fair. But if you go to a bigger school, they have enough money to not only pay the football players and the basketball players, but also to pay those other small sport athletes as well. It would not be a very fair system, and the NCAA, in the first place, would want it to be evenly distributed throughout all schools, the amount of money that's brought in. And that would not work out, obviously. As you can see, not every school has the same amount of programs, not every school has the same level of programs. And when you consider that, you think about, okay, well, we only have basketball at Green Bay. If you go to, say, Ohio State, they're nationally ranked football. They're always up there in basketball. I think this past year they were up there in lacrosse. I mean, those three sports who are, NCAA, finals teams that go out there every year and do that consistently, they're bringing in more money than our school's probably brought in its history of athletics, to be honest. So how do we sit there and say that, if we're going to distribute it evenly, you get an athlete who's, maybe the best player in the country here, but maybe somebody here at Green Bay, a basketball player, gets paid the same amount because the money has to be evenly distributed between those athletes. Another thing that people have proposed is that, you have plenty of donors and alumni who would be more than willing to make an investment in some of these players, put forth money to the athletic program to say, oh, sure, I'm going to do this. Give these money to the kids, they can use it for whatever else they need because they're bringing in so much. And to create a fund where, other people can get involved who see that this is happening to give to these players. Well, then the issue arises with that. How do you see that investment, and how do you continue to do that continually? Not enough players that you would be donating to would go pro to make that investment worth it in your eyes. That wouldn't hold out for very long, and it'd be very hard for the school to regulate that. And that just leads to all sorts of NCAA violations where improper benefits are given and athletes start getting, they end up showing up with cars and things. So that whole area is so murky and everything. So the thing that I would say, the solution to all of that, is to just really say, yeah, you're getting your scholarship, and that's not usually enough for some of these bigger schools because there's so much other things grabbing your attention. Food, your social life, your gas. It's hard to work a job and do all of that with class and being an athlete. there really isn't a good solution to that. And I see how it is unfair for those athletes, but then you have to look at, from our perspective, at a smaller school, we don't see that as much because, especially in our state of Wisconsin, our budget gets cut just about every year. So it doesn't seem like a very plausible solution to anything for us to give away more money to athletes just because they say they need it or they feel like I'm bringing in the money, why aren't I seeing some of that percentage come back to me? I think that athletes say, well, I just feel like maybe the school doesn't care enough about me. Well, they obviously care about you enough to give you a full scholarship and to be there for you and behind the scenes and do all sorts of things that you wouldn't know even go on. And so I think that it's unfair for us to say, oh, the money that these athletes bring in should go back to them. I say it should go back to people behind the scenes who do things like compliance or executive staff members who go out and promote these athletes in the community to help boost the program in order to get better athletes to come in. Those people behind the scenes do more work than the athletes sometimes to better the program. Just because you're a player and you play for a team and you do well doesn't mean that that program's going to be there. Many teams, especially swimming, get cut every year from universities in order to make money for budgets in, basketball coaches or football coaches. And you see those decisions being made. So from my point of view, I think that we should, instead of giving that money to athletes, give the money to the staff and back to the university so that way we don't have to go out and I don't have to, go on the internet and see, oh, this school that I know some people that swim at just got cut. The program got cut because the football coach needed more money on his contract. It's ridiculous. So I think a lot of that money that we get, we shouldn't be talking about giving it to the athletes. We should be talking about giving it back to people who do other work, financial work, that can say, okay, here, I know how to budget this so we can keep these programs and keep more athletes involved on campus, keep them involved in other programs, leadership things. Those things are things that we do at Green Bay with a lot of that money that we come in. So I think it'd be great if bigger schools did that and we were able to create maybe a program through the NCAA that we could use this money for things that all athletes across there could vote on and want, or give it back to some sort of staff member. Those are the ways that I would see its most positive effects from where that money's coming from. I can say that this is very relevant right now because Wright State actually just cut their men's and women's swimming and diving. And they're a pretty big team in the Horizon League that we compete against. Well, they just fired their basketball coach this past year, and they hired a new one, and they're giving that basketball coach $500,000 a year, which is a massive amount for a small school basketball coach. Well, they cut swimming and diving and said, we expect to have a savings of about $500,000 based on all the expenses of the swim team. And they put that out there as just, oh, whatever, But we see that and we know that if we were just giving some of the money that's going to that coach now across the board, you could be able to find a way to budget it. Okay, maybe we take some from there, we take some from there, we take some of, basketball budgets from last year that they made, bring it in, and use it to keep those scholarships to those athletes. Because losing a program and losing your scholarship, not losing your scholarship, but losing your team is the hardest thing you can go through. So I think from my perspective as a small athlete, as a small school, we should bring the money in, but distribute it to people who know what to do with it, not kids who probably will spend it on things that aren't as important, like athletes who are, between the ages of 18 and 21. Probably not the best idea to trust them with extra money, even if they need it. In conclusion, I think that you can really see there's no way to go about fairly paying all athletes for that money that's brought in by them, because there's no way that those athletes can be responsible with it, can be trusted with it, and can also be fair with it. There's just too many logistics, and the NCAA will find some way to go at you and at your program to say, oh, you can't do that, that's not allowed. And so there's just really no positive way to do it. So I think the only solution is to really give it back to the school in positive ways in order to create more opportunities for our athletes in the community and hopefully further on in their careers. So that's why we should not pay our college athletes any more than their scholarships. Thank you.